quick shout out to today's sponsor, Katana. We'll hear more from Katana later in today's episode.
Nothing said on 0x Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed.
Good morning. Welcome back to another 0x Research live stream. Your host, Danny, and co-host, Salve Boccaccio, ZK Boccaccio, Triple Boccaccio. How you doing today, Bach?
I'm good. How are you? How's your day been?
Doing good. It's a little cold today. I had to bring some fresh water to the chickens outside that wasn't frozen.
It's cold?
Yeah, it's cold. It's below, it's like freezing temperatures. It snowed yesterday.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, that's about how interesting the crypto markets are. Well, it's frozen. Not much to do.
Yeah, it does feel there's not a lot going on. We've got some topics. I don't know. Do you want to talk about the markets generally first, or do you not have anything strong to add there?
I don't.
Otherwise, we can jump in.
I did the newsletter today, and I looked, and it's like we've regained 92k BTC, which is great, or at least the last time I checked, we regained 92k BTC. Hype's been underperforming over the past few days. The rest of the tokens have kind of rebounded a bit, and by rebound I mean like Sol's at 140 instead of 130. I don't even know what ETH is at. I imagine it's at 3 or 4k somehow in between there. Market's definitely at the stage where it is a lot more boring than I would have imagined, and I can't remember. I don't remember if you remember this feeling, but in like 22, it was really bad. November, FTX collapses, and then but what was really really bad was just the sheer boredom that you got for like 4 or 5 months because markets just wouldn't go up. There was no bid, and it feels like there is kind of a bid here, but it's like mostly mean reversion. Like nothing's actually getting bid up to the point where it's like, oh, like this thing is going up. Versus, and then you're looking at stocks and seems at least semi more exciting, where it's like there's stuff being really really bid up. But yeah, like the markets don't have any strong thoughts. I saw that Trump wants to, or at least the guy that Trump wants to bring, I can't remember his name now, but he's like Trump friendly. Is it Hassett? Can you confirm if it's
Kevin Hassett?
Yeah, he is at 78% on Kalshi, which is pretty good as like the next Federal Reserve chairman. Next Federal Reserve chair, not chairman. Yeah, those are like literally the only two things that I looked at. Apart from that, I've been honestly reading more and more about TradFi stuff. I've been
yeah, I think I guess on the majors, like I don't know, MicroStrategy or Strategy bought $1 billion of BTC or announced another $1 billion that they purchased of BTC. I also saw that I don't think it was Tether themselves, but maybe some investment firm affiliated to Tether bought like 4 billion or so of BTC that was being tracked on Arkham, and Bitmine bought some ETH. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, we've been in this like downtrend, and I guess sort of like flattening out, maybe down here now, just at these lower levels than earlier in the year. So of course the excitement, the gambling excitement has cooled off a little bit. Some of the things that I'm seeing people talk about, I mean, there still seems to be like a big focus on like ICOs and token launches. A bunch of the platforms like on Sol are kind of competing on this. MetaDAO is doing the whole futarchy thing. There's still a bunch of like these other
somehow involved in it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like that's been the big thing, I feel like, over the past, but it's also such a like boring thing to play. Right? Like
yeah, it's tough in the traditional sense that like the short-term outcomes are probably going to be relatively disappointing for a lot of these things. Like, Coinbase did the Monad sale, and Monad is at roughly its list price or so, maybe a little higher.
Yeah, I think it's a little higher, but it's nothing like super sexy. I think they did. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they did it at 2.5, and it's at 3 right now. I should probably check this anyway. But yeah, I mean, nothing like exciting, right? It's at 2.7 right now, so it's like literally up 10%, less than 10%. This is one of those things you can play and probably make a bit of money on. I think it's mostly been captured at this point. Like I think there was a time when you could do a lot of ICOs and probably do relatively well. I think it coincided with MetaDAO's original ones, like Avicii. There's a few more of those. Umbra famously raised a lot of money, returned it. You could have made money on those, but also even those are like, I don't know. It's not where like I would have imagined we would be, but also like now I'm looking back at my, I don't want to say journal or diary, but I'm looking back at this thing that I keep like loosely once or twice a week. And then one of my things that I wrote was like, probably time to sell mid December, mid 25, late 25, and it's. I wrote
Did you
this
do
in
that?
23. Huh?
Did you do that?
I sold a decent chunk. I don't have that much exposure left, but it's also kind of interesting thing because it was really hard for me to sell, and I was like, I don't want to sell, and then, but back then it like logically made sense based on I think the 4-year cycle. I was like, it makes sense. So, and then yeah, like volatility is still there at least, but there's nothing super exciting happening. Even though we have like a lot of token launches, right? Like we have Monad recently. We have Mega Eve coming up, presumably.
It's just a change. We're kind of like the market is adjusting to the sort of change in the game. Like when things are going up only, then a lot of the like short-term games can be very profitable. Like buying and selling a launch, within a few days and being up a couple X. And then I feel during these periods, it's the game kind of changes. It's less about just like buying every sale and hoping to instantly flip it, and more about having to seek out opportunities and potentially like think longer term, like 6-12 months. Like what do you think is going to happen and where those things are headed?
I find that it's very difficult to say anything about 6 to 12 months, though. I feel like it's easier to say about 2 months and easier to say about 10 years. But it's very difficult to say about 6 to 12 months. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen in 6 to 12 months. Do you?
No, of course not.
No, it's impossible.
Maybe even 2 months is the appropriate comparison. But you mentioned like Avicii, for example. And I mean, that token has been up only for 2 months. So, but it wasn't like a buy it day one and sell it the next day type of thing, which I think is what so much of the participants are focused on.
Yeah. What have you been? I know you're very into Rivian now.
No, not now. I feel like I've been interested in Rivian. We don't have to talk about Rivian though. It's not crypto, but there does seem to be a little bit of an overlap there of I don't know. Maybe it's to the point about crypto people getting into looking at equities and wanting to find things to trade there instead. I've been interested in this conversation around like Lighter and Hyperliquid and Perps. Let me pull up. There's a couple of markets. I mean, I think for one, people are looking for a TG here by the end of the year. I'm just pulling up the Poly market, but the market right now is pricing pretty good odds that they launch this token before the end of the year. So in the next 3 weeks. And then I guess I've seen some discussion that like this is, I don't know, people are looking at hype price down and they're saying, well, team selling, token unlocks, team selling, but also more competition, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I think they're trying to ascribe some things to just like market going down, momentum breaking down, trading activity and revenues are lower than they were earlier in the year. There's probably a lot of things you could ascribe to it. But it has sparked some conversation of like, where does the perp space go? I'm curious if you have strong thoughts there, or how much you've thought about like this. You kind of have hype with they've got fees in their product and the builder code like front end model, and then Lighter is doing the more like
everything in house.
Yeah, almost like a Robinhood model, zero free, probably like some kind of payment for order flow type of strategy here.
I mean, I think Lighter is the most real competition that Hyperliquid has right now. I don't think that's a very contentious thing to say as well. Like, I think almost everybody realizes that. And I think a lot of Hyperliquid people also realize that. It's going to depend on a few things. I think Hyperliquid got a little bit lucky in that, well, not lucky because it's like a lot of trade-offs that you have to do. Like, you don't raise outside capital, which means that all of the risk is like by the team and their own capital. So that's the thing, like how much of the token is going to VCs, because VCs have to sell. It's their fiduciary duty. At least good VCs have to sell. So like it depends on stuff like that. It depends on launch price. Like, I don't know, Hype launched at 2 bill. Do you think Lighter launches at a price that low? I don't know. And at the time it was very much like Hype wasn't a guaranteed thing, to the point that it wasn't particularly consensus. So not everybody, like, there was a reason that it went up and then up and then up, because people slowly realized, okay, like this thing is a very different machine, like a very different business, versus like it didn't launch at a very high price. I don't know what the market dynamics are like now that Lighter, like I wouldn't be surprised if Lighter launched at 5 bill. It wouldn't be an insane thing to me. Based
pulling
on
up Poly market, looking at a few mil potential or 3 billion potentially.
Yeah, I would say like 3 bill based on this. I mean, I don't know how much volume there is on this. Oh, there's actually a pretty decent chunk.
16 million.
I don't know. To me, it would make sense if it would be, like 3 bill, 2.5 3 bill. I don't know. The market dynamic is so different for some. Like, think about it this way. It's like people who did the ETH ICO, or like when they first, or like people who did Solana, the original, like when you could buy at $3. What L1 can you buy? I guess Monad, you can buy it free will, but do you know what I'm trying to say here? Like, the market dynamic is so different that I don't know if you can get the gains from Lighter that you would be able to get from Hyperliquid if you had bought it at launch. Nevertheless, I do think that it is the biggest competitor that Hyperliquid has right now. And I think that's purely because they are launching everything in-house. I do think they've made some strategic mishaps. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they're only allowing equity perps trading during market hours. Like, that to me is, after hours trading is liquid enough. Like, holidays and weekends, okay, you can do the Ostium thing where it's like 24/5, but why would you do just market hours? If people want to trade market hours, they'll just trade on an exchange where there's a lot of liquidity. Does that make sense? Like, to me, that didn't, because you can get the pricing from a relatively liquid venue after hours, and I don't think that would have been a big deal for them. The second thing is, I feel like they've been slightly slow to to expand the product a bit further, and like spot is just happening now, and it's only like 2 assets. I feel like they could have gone more and more, but it's a good product. I use Lighter relatively often. Most of the time I use Hyperliquid, but sometimes I want to use Lighter just to like get some points on it. It's pretty good. I have heard from people who are a lot more involved in the trading side, in that they either do like they run strategies or they were at some point involved with high frequency trading or algorithmic trading, that Lighter is not as good. But I'm taking their word for that, as opposed to saying something that I actually have experience in.
Yeah, I don't have a strong bias one way or another. I think I'm a proud holder of like 10 Lighter points, so certainly not enough value there to mean anything. I would maybe counter both. I think on that equity perps thing, I see it as sort of like a whatever. Like I think it's sort of like a natural. All of these platforms are racing to implement. I don't really see it as necessarily a knock that they did it market hours only. I'm assuming it's just like, let's do market hours only. We can just turn it on right now, 0 risk, and then we can spend, I don't know, a couple months building out a system to do like a 24/7 style offering. But I imagine it's just like, let's just turn them on. You know, maybe there'll only be a few million volume, but that's fine. And at least they'll be in the app. And then like on their speed of shipping, I guess I've been impressed, honestly. Like Spot, I mean, they just added Spot ETH like last week, but I don't know that they're, when I look at the markets that they have, like they also have the Forex markets, which are quite large, I would say, given, I guess, maybe what I would expect. Like maybe I'll share this tab that I'm looking at right now. Looking at the equity perps, like, you know, you see a lot of these big names that you see on the other platforms, only a few million in open interest for most of these stocks, only a few million in daily volume. On the Forex side, like the Euro USD pair, over 80 million open interest, over 100 million in volume, and a lot of these other pairs as well, you know, 50 million in volume. Obviously, there's no fees on volume, but still, you know, the ratio here of open interest to volume
It's pretty good, and I think
it's quite good.
Lighter is the only place where you can actually do FX in perps, like the big ones. I'm sure like a bunch of smaller ones have them. Do they have any commodities?
Yeah, I think it's just gold and silver. So they have the.
This is also not bad. I mean,
so I guess what I was gonna say is like I've been honestly impressed with. I don't know. They've been very quick to like. Okay, I think Forex actually came in November or maybe even late October. So they added that. They added the commodities. They added the equity perps. They just added Spot. Like I think they've been moving pretty quickly. These past 4 or 5 months, honestly. Yeah. So. And if they've got the token launch coming as well, then I mean, obviously the token doesn't necessarily mean anything for the product, but in some ways, the token is always part of the product for the speculators out there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll do well. Like I think they've objectively done a really good job, the team, and like I said, I think it's the only real competitor. I have like the reason that I said maybe they're a bit slow is maybe just I was expecting more, but also on the other hand, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, if I wasn't on the podcast and if somebody asked me my thoughts, I wouldn't have even brought it up. I think it's kind of like the podcasters thing where you have to be like, you know, it's really good, but also X, Y, Z.
Just trying to have a take.
Yeah, you have to have a take. The other thing here is, now if you are the team, and you've sold equity, you have a company and you've sold equity in the company, they need to kind of be careful in how those fees, because let's not like there's a lot of protocols out there that generate very significant revenue. We all know this, but the main difference has been recently that there are some protocols that will accrue that value to the token, and there are some protocols that will not accrue that value to the token. So Lighter could be a fantastic protocol with amazing low fees, great low latency. You know, you buy whatever you want on chain, fantastic. They need to figure out the token end. and how it's going to accrue value. And I think that's where the VC stuff gets tricky because, I mean, it's just like it's a completely different way of structuring things. I don't have enough experience with it. I would be curious to see how they're going to do it. The market expects, I would say, a certain amount in buybacks or like direct value accrual to tokens at this point. I mean, we've been talking about this for months now, but it's just the reality. I don't know if they have to do 100%. I don't. If you're using the other money to invest in the product, that's fine. But I do think that there needs to be some form of like, okay, we're generating X amount of fees, and then we're going to use like 50% of it, 70% of it, 80% of it to buy back the token or return or some other way. You know what I mean? The other thing is, I had one more thing I wanted to say. It slipped my mind. But yeah, do you know what? Like, they need to somehow show that the token is going to be worth something, or else you just another like 21 protocol.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I personally, I'm hopeful that actually the ownership coin model becomes more of a standard than we just ship all the money we make into the coin, because I just think that is like maybe fun in the short term, and especially when the market's going up, because it's an additional slam bid into the coin. But like if you are thinking long term about the success of a platform, it just feels like kind of a waste. So I'm hoping we can get away from that and we can get more into like, you know, maybe it's token holder rights, or, you know, the equity and the token get combined into an entity and you take away the question marks. But you know, we'll see. MetaDAO has some traction there, but there's not like some of these large projects. It's still quite, I would say, quite limited in terms of that approach being taken. So
yeah, the issue of like MetaDAO is, for example, like Monad will never get on it, right? Like, does it like Lighter won't ever be a MetaDAO launch, or Monad will never be a MetaDAO. Does that,
yeah,
like the larger ones that you're like, okay, like I want to see some form of like ownership in it. It just doesn't work out. And the other issue is I feel like it's more of a regulation thing as opposed to an on-chain smart contract thing. It definitely, like MetaDAO is great because it fixes it for this like 10 to 15% of protocols, like not mid-tier. I think these protocols can do very, very well, but like purely based on the amount of money that they raise, I guess they're like mid to lower tier. And it works really well for these protocols because you simplify the entire process. Investors know what they're getting. The team has clear goals and KPIs. Fantastic. MetaDAO benefits. Fantastic. But it doesn't work for everybody, and it can't work for everybody. And at that point, I think some form of, unfortunately, regulation has to get involved and say tokens are actually like, if you hold a token that entitles you to ownership of the protocol if it dissolves, because that's the entire basis of stocks, right? Like, if you're an equity holder, at some point after they pay back preferred equity, debt, whatever, you get the remaining of the money. And that's what, like, it doesn't represent anything, and it won't represent anything for the vast majority of protocols, apart from a very niche group that say we want our token to be ownership tokens. And they're also self-selecting, like good teams who would have probably already had some form of value accrual mechanism, who were going to work towards a good goal, end up picking themselves and putting themselves into this basket of like MetaDAO saying we're going to do ownership tokens. They're not the ones that I'm worried about, though. Like, the ones that I'm worried about are the very large protocols who have very convoluted equity token structures because they've raised 5 times, and some of them have raised $450 million. And then also like the shittier protocols where I'm like, I don't know if I get like any legal rights if I buy these guys tokens. They're lying, and I'm cooked. You know?
yeah. I think more and more though the market is forcing outcomes here, especially in a down market. It's like when you get those clearly poorly designed structures there where all the value goes to maybe the equity and the token is a meme coin, then maybe maybe the gamblers like kind of speculate on it for a few days, and it pumps here and there, and people try to play the quick kind of rotation game. But I don't know. We see again and again that all of those just trend to zero because people are not willing to just like hold a meme coin that means nothing in relation to a business or protocol. So I agree with you. Like, we probably, like, ideally you need to have some like base level regulations that maybe force some of this to an extent, but otherwise we're kind of left with, you have to kind of select for the good teams and deselect all the teams that aren't willing to make those choices.
Another thing about Lighter that's kind of weird. Sorry, I just remembered what I was going to bring up before. They don't share any of their revenue, and they're saying we're going to share our revenue when the time is right. And they're like, oh, like we're just like trying to figure out how to show the revenue. I'm like, it's quite simple, buddy. You just show how much money you make by day, and then sometimes by week, and then sometimes by month, and then by quarter, and then that's it. But they don't know how to show that, which is another reason why I'm kind of like, I don't know what they're doing in the back end. It's a weird thing to do, right? Like if you're a DEX and you're making money, and I'm pretty sure they're making money, like based on the amount of trades that people are taking on this platform. If they're doing like a payment for order flow model, which I think they are, even though ZK Mike just got upset at me and said they're not doing PFOF, which I'm pretty sure they are. Anyway, they are doing PFOF. They're making a lot of money, and they're like, they've publicly said we need to make sure that we are representing the numbers the way we want to represent them, which to me seems. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I guess I don't have enough context there, but I guess what I would say is, like, if, for example, I'm going to assume that they have maybe like a profit sharing agreement with market makers that operate on the exchange or something along those lines, then maybe getting the revenue statements is not quite as simple as just like looking at an address on chain and then like saying, hey, here's the revenue for the day, because maybe it potentially is maybe not routed that in that way. But in terms of like how they want to present it, I guess, and maybe this is leaning a little too stock based or equity based, but it is fairly common to, like, I don't know, take some time thinking about like what are the metrics you present as a public company to say that, like, it's not quite as simple as just like, here's our revenue. Usually it's like you break out other metrics. Like if you're Tesla, it's like how many cars did we deliver and what's our margin per car, and like if we're doing robotaxis, like how much are people paying per ride and how many rides we did. So in this case, maybe it's more involved, and it's like, maybe they have some revenue share agreement with different parties and they want to maybe break that out in certain ways, but I don't know, maybe some of that can't be shared. I don't know. I'm taking maybe a generous interpretation here, but
since I've seen you beat to a protocol, so I think you may have more than 10 points and you were live.
What's that?
This is the nicest I've seen you beat to a protocol, so I think maybe you have more than 10 points and you're lying. I
have 10. I might have 11 points as of this week, but no, I don't have very many points. I'm just interested in the, I don't know. It's like the kind of the one hot area of competition right now that's like pretty interesting. I feel like in other areas, MetaDAO is kind of like the only game in town in like this new form of like launches and things. But at least in the perp space, like there's some back and forth going. I was tuned into the meme coin Launchpad wars earlier in the year, but that's it's down in the dumps. So I have to have something to get interested in it. But we have no details on the token. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate and say the token is bad before there's any details. But when they're dropped, like we can shit all over it if it's bad,
Or we'll be like very into it. I will say there are other places where I think a lot of action is happening. I just think we probably aren't as interested as other people are. Like Daniel Smith got one-shotted by prop AMMs. It's all you can think about.
That's true.
And it's like, I guess now there is a way for you to invest in it, which is through wet. And I don't know how much context you have, but from what I saw, it seems like they already they messed it up once, and I think now they did something weird. the second time around, where they announced that they were going to do it at some point and then changed it to earlier. But I think that's it. Like it's still trading based, and prop AMMs are like, I would say objectively quite interesting. It's like kind of being super interested in MEV back in 21, and it's like, well, you can't really make any money on it unless you're like spending a lot of time actually building out the stuff. So
yeah, I think that's a valid point. So, sometimes, in even the places where the competition is happening, there may not always be publicly investable things in those activities, and like that's probably how I would place prop AMMs today. Like even in a wet token scenario, like as it stands today, I don't think that token means anything in regards to the success of Humidify. We'll see. Maybe they change it, but as it stands right now, it doesn't seem too likely. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably plenty of areas that are interesting, but without tokens. So at least Lighter's going to TG. There's a bunch of teams competing here. Obviously, Hyperliquid has kind of been the story for the past year, and they've had a token out. So this is at least like a sector that's very interesting from that perspective. Lending may be the other area, and we've seen kind of some drama there. But I guess from my POV, like lending at its core, like is not like a super exciting hot thing that from day to day changes very rapidly. It's a bit more of a slow moving giant, I would say.
Maybe we're just kind of lost because the people into lending are also super into lending. They're like, oh yeah. Modular pools, man, they're crazy. And they're also super into Pendle all the time. I'm thinking of Carlos, who's probably having the time of his life because there's like all this stuff happening in lending, but also all this stuff happening in prop AMMs. And he's like, yeah, this is fantastic. Versus like, I don't know, there's not that much particularly interesting things happening for me. I am happy that we are consolidating a bit into these perps DEXs. Like, I think 2 months ago, you saw Taiki himself shill 5 different ones to farm, and then now it's like these other ones still exist, and I imagine that they do okay. But for the time being, I can comfortably in my mind say over the next 3 months, in terms of perp DEXs, you probably don't need to worry about the ones that haven't included some form of equity perps trading or like not named Hyperliquid or Lighter. Like you can just be purely focused on these two and see how they go, which is a good place to be in, right? Like as an industry, if each category somewhat consolidate themselves, with lending you have Morpho, Aave, I would say those are the big two, and then there's the other ones trying to get in. Is your dog bothering you?
No, she just came for some pets. Yeah, I think you make some good points. We tend to see this though. There's like a lot of excitement around something, and then 10 competitors get launched on very maybe small difference or nuanced views about what the product should be or what it should include, and then maybe one of those survives and becomes a meaningful competitor. But I think that's kind of generally the way that the markets sort of go. I mean, you're seeing that in AI broadly, right? Like there's like 9 trillion AI startups, and obviously 8.9999 trillion of those are going to go to zero, and then there's going to be a few that do really well. So it's kind of like the natural like cyclical process that happens with startups and businesses and investing. Before we chat about anything else though, I do want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors for today's stream, starting with Katana. Katana is an L2 built for DeFi and is pioneering the ecosystem category of productive TVL, believing that change should be graded on how efficiently assets are put to work in DeFi rather than just total value locked. From now until the end of November, users that bridge to Katana can earn boosted yield from CAT incentive campaigns, added VaultBridge yield, and other chain revenue. Follow the link in today's show notes to get started. As well as Uniswap. Thanks to Uniswap for sponsoring today's stream. The Uniswap trading API solves the problem of adding crypto to your products without the hassle of needing deep crypto expertise, ongoing maintenance, or liquidity aggregation. The trading API provides access to the Uniswap protocol, which has processed 3.3 trillion in all-time volume, handled over 465 million swaps for more than 25 million addresses, all with zero security breaches. Developed by Uniswap Labs, the US-based team behind one of the most used DeFi apps, access some of the deepest liquidity in crypto, combining both on-chain and off-chain sources for optimal pricing. The same liquidity that powers billions in swaps, now available via a singular API. thanks so much to our sponsors.
Thank you, Uniswap. Thank you, Katana. Should we talk about the Uniswap thing now that we've mentioned them?
Yeah, do you want to talk about Uni? I guess that's maybe another place where kind of like when I was mentioning like sales and ICOs and these things being kind of a core, I don't know, focus of the market right now. Uniswap has their CCA, continuous clearing auctions system, and they just did, I think their first one with Aztec, I believe. Yes. Let me pull up. Hayden had a tweet about it, just sharing some details, saying 59 million in bids, no sniping, bundling, timing games, just slow, fair price discovery, ending 59% above the floor. Even if you bid 10 billion FTB on the first day, you would not have overpaid and instead executed at a DCA price between the floor and the clearing price. Large portion of the auction proceeds will seed a pool and be the largest secondary market liquidity source. I guess this system, it makes sense to me in a few different ways. Like, I guess this is kind of like the reckoning of different games that we have in crypto. Like, I think while we understand, I think generally that like some of these other sale mechanisms, like the first come first serve, or like pricing a sale like maybe way below what the expected like valuation of the thing will be in public, are, I think, typically done on purpose, because then it pumps the price, or it lets certain individuals kind of play a game there and capture some return from that activity. In this case, like this auction mechanism makes a lot of sense to like basically let anyone get kind of like what is expected to be the fair price and then seed in a starting pool. I don't have a strong take here other than the fact that like I just don't think that this Aztec token is particularly exciting, and maybe opens up the problem of like you have to get immediately into the conversation about like, are the tokens worth anything, and do they, like, is the token a meme coin in relation to the protocol, or does it have value? So like the sale mechanism can be quite good, but if the token is not good, then you still have a problem to solve, though that's not necessarily Uniswap's problem.
It's not, but if you're Uniswap, you want to make sure that the first token that launches through you goes up. So that,
or at least isn't, you don't want them to be a scam. Which, not that I'm not saying Aztec is a scam. I don't think that the team is, but
no, I also, I don't think that it is a scam. I'm just like, Espresso is not a scam, for example, but Espresso has pivoted 4 or 5 times. Astria isn't a scam, but they've pivoted 4 or 5 times. These are like teams working on interesting problems that the market doesn't necessarily value sometimes.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is they don't go up. And if Aztec doesn't go up, it's not a great advertisement for the Uniswap. PGA? CGA?
CCA.
CCA. Jesus, PGA is a golf tour.
PGA.
So that's one big. But on the other hand, I really like that a lot of these teams are now launching forms of issuing assets on chain. It makes a lot of sense if you're a DEX, because you end up controlling the entire funnel from launch to trading. Although I'm not sure if Uniswap would have had a problem with that anyway. Like for MetaDAO, it makes a lot of sense because AMMs make a lot of money, and I think that's why MetaDAO did it. Velodrome, it makes a lot of sense because I think most of the time, Aerodrome, tokens end up putting their liquidity onto Uniswap, and if they launch through Aerodrome and the liquidity lives on Aerodrome, it's a fantastic way to do it because the protocol takes all the fees. I don't know if Uniswap needed to do that, and I'm a bit surprised that Aztec is their first choice, but it does like conceptually make sense. Like Uniswap is kind of an old guard token. Aztec's kind of an old guard token. makes sense that they would work together. I do think that it would have been probably better from Uniswap's end to go with something that was valued at a lower price, probably, and something that might be more interesting to regular users day one. Although I don't know enough about Aztec, and we did just have a privacy, like a big privacy thing, like a month ago. So I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and Aztec ends up doing really, really well. I eat my words.
Yeah, and maybe something that we still need to work through is this. I mean, you mentioned a bunch of names, not just Aztec, but like I don't know, projects that raised post 2021 at high valuations, and now they're launching in a very, I would say, relatively different market. It's like you're not going to launch some L2 at 10 billion FTV, and so prior raise rounds are like quite high relative to maybe what you'd expect this thing to trade at on the public market, and obviously also like launching maybe like a fresh network today with nothing on it. I don't know. I think they have a lot of headwinds that they're working against, but the sale mechanism is good. So if Aztec is going to be successful, like at least it's not being like overinflated by a poor sale mechanism to start things off, and it can trade kind of like where the market expects it to for now.
Yeah,
so that does help.
Yeah, it does help. This is the market is also at a better stage than in like post 2021. It's just that these types of projects just aren't valued the same way. I saw somebody wrote something about how like retail is getting smarter, but not in the sense of like they're not falling for
I feel like it depends. It depends on what you mean by smarter, because I think there'll always be two games in the sense that like there's always the one game around a launch, and it's like that's the hot asset, and if you can predict up or down, you could make a lot of money in the first 1 or 2 days. And maybe you can't really predict that, and it's just kind of like you're just gambling every single new launch. But either way, there's always a lot of volatility around those events in many cases. Maybe the CCA mechanism kind of eliminates that to some part, and you can kind of save retail from themselves in some senses. But then we need to fix then you need to work on the longer term game, which is around kind of the token value accrual stuff that we were talking about. But yeah, I think those are definitely like differentiated, and I think a lot of people trip over themselves because they think they're playing one game when they're actually playing the other, and then things don't work out.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It is. I read a few people talk about. I mean, every like time there's a bear market, people say this, right? It's like you should start increasingly focusing on. Like this is a good thing and a bad thing, because crypto is, as it becomes more and more normalized, volatility goes down, and when volatility goes down, the ability to make increased returns goes down as well. So you want to focus, and like as it becomes part of this broader asset class, which includes macro assets and stocks and whatever, you want to start getting more and more focused on all assets. So I guess, like to your point, there's two games being played, but now we're also bringing in a third, much larger game, which is just general investment. Also, just like I've been corrected, and you've also been corrected. Robinhood Lighter does not have PFOF. High frequency traders and algo traders pay for lower latency right now. I imagine they'll either go into a PFOF model in the future, or
that's where all their revenue comes from, is a fee for HFT.
which makes you think how much money these like high frequency trading firms must be making off retail flow, such that they'll pay so much money for it. I mean, like latency really, really matters, right? But like figures I saw on DeFi Llama was 185 mil annualized, which is quite a bit of money being paid to Lighter.
It's not bad.
It's good.
It's so
Satoshi corrected me.
So actually, in a roundabout way, it's the same thing, though, right?
Yeah, it is roundabout way.
You let the sophisticated entities pay you a fee to trade faster. Some of them inevitably are market making. Retail trades for free, but they're getting quoted spreads from the market makers, and then you're not getting maybe a direct profit share, but you're getting a fee by charging them to use that service. So it's in a roundabout way, it's the exact same thing. It's just
functionally the same model, but
different design. Yeah,
different design. It is a cool thing, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense to me, though. I mean, I figured it was something along those lines, so I guess it makes sense to still it still sort of falls into that same thought process.
Yeah. Lighter's cool. I will say one thing. I watched a few of the interviews, and I think they should be doing more and more interviews.
More interviews?
Yeah, more and more interviews. This is one thing that was my thought. My simple thought. I like it when founders go on and talk about their thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's becoming more of a trend as well. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, this idea of founder-led marketing, and you just see some of the more, I mean, maybe they tend to be like more retail names, but maybe that plays into it. But, you see people like Alex Karp of Palantir.
Yeah, he's really good.
It's one of the classic stock, and same with Elon and Tesla. They're like some of the classic stocks where people say, "What? They're way overvalued," and it's like, maybe that's part of it. Is they build up a stronger following by just being more open to the public about their plans, however crazy they are.
Even in crypto, we have a few very founder-led marketing. I would say Aerodrome does this quite well. Alex Cutler is really good at this. Very vocal, sometimes a little angry, but overall a very sharp guy who can.
I feel like ETH and Solana are pretty good examples of this, maybe for different reasons, but I don't know, historically Vitalik has been kind of like a cornerstone, although he's been a bit odd in his execution. Yeah, it's maybe changed, but for the longest time it was very much like he very much drove all of the discussion around Ethereum. I think you see that changing a little bit with Solana, but I don't know. Totally talks about all these things and he retweets projects.
Totally less as well now. I guess I'm gonna be wrong over the next few days because they're just having breakpoint now, but I feel like he's quieted down over the past 6 months versus I'm seeing more and more non-Tolly people speak. Same with Raj. He was also very, very vocal. I think it's just the signs of developing product though. The larger your product gets, the more people you bring on and the voices become more and more dispersed. I feel like Justin Drake's a lot more of a talking head now. Dan Cred was historically very quiet. Solana has Vibu now. It's very, very vocal. Matt, obviously, they've always had very vocal. So they have all of the investors as well, like Kyle Samanius, one-man machine who was just bet you $100 million anytime you talk badly about. He's like James, but a lot richer.
Yeah, it's a massive size check, James. That's tough. I feel like the Solana strategy is very interesting too. They very intentionally sometimes rage bait, sometimes but it's very engagement focused. Sometimes they know they're making something that's rage bait and they're doing it on purpose because they want to elicit the response.
Yeah, they're quite good at it.
It makes sense. It's a marketing tactic.
I would say that they have some cringe marketing, but even their cringe marketing, they play into it such that it doesn't become. I think it's a lot better of a strategy than what others have taken, what other chains have historically taken. I will say one thing. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and if Hyperliquid starts doing not well, I think the comms thing will start biting them in the ass. Because they do very little comms. Jeff does a pod every 2 months, and he does it really well. He's very polished, he speaks very clearly, but that's it. That's all of the
pretty famous example of lack of founder-led marketing, I guess is what I would say. They're the complete opposite, where there's very little coming from
founder-led marketing.
I do think I think the market wants more of it. They certainly probably need a more vocal public spokesperson about the project. And what they're doing.
There's a few people that have taken that slot, if you think about it. Max Fiegi is very vocal, and he is probably like, I don't think he's handpicked. I don't think he's approved by the team. I don't think he's approved by the majority of the community, but he is like objectively pretty smart. So he does a good job. And also like other bag holders as well, right? Like me, I'm on the pod once a week. Just fucking speak about Hyperliquid.
Yeah. Well, in crypto, there's certainly the community led marketing. It can become pretty like, I don't know. I feel like XRP and Ripple are the classic strong example of that, where you just, for whatever reason, every other boomer has like, you know, 50K in Ripple, and they're like, it's my retirement account, and I'm gonna live on XRP for the rest of my life. It's going to 10,000. And otherwise, you don't really hear from, like, I don't know, Garlinghouse talking on CNN every day or anything like that.
I do see him quite a bit, but on like scam YouTube videos. It's not him. It's like some AI thing. It's like Ripple's doing its 4th airdrop. Make sure to click this link.
You could maybe argue there's a transition point where you get enough of a strong community that they can kind of take on the messaging, but in some cases that bites you in the butt, right?
Yeah, you don't want the bad people to become your spokespeople.
Well, and then like if things are going poorly or against you, like, I don't know, I think you've seen the ups and downs within like the ETH community and culture, and it's like, oh, everything's great, like ETH's going to take over the world, and then like 2022, 23, it's like, oh man, I don't know, maybe we chose the wrong model or something. They don't have like community doesn't have clear like vision and direction. So I don't know. I think there's always a point for kind of like a clear central voice to say like, yeah, there's a clear vision and product roadmap and where things are going.
Yeah.
And for ETH, like, you know, maybe Vitalik was not always so talkative, but he did, you know, at least provide some of that consistent, like, this is where we're going. This is how the roadmap's evolving, XYZ.
Yeah. And Vitalik's also not media trained or anything at all. He just goes up. He's just
a funny guy.
Yeah, he's just a funny guy. It's very, I will say he is like very clear in the way he speaks for somebody who is clearly like 3 standard deviations out of my IQ. So it's very good.
All right. I need to one more time give a shout out to our sponsor for today's stream, Katana. Katana is an L2 built for DeFi and is pioneering the ecosystem category of Productive TVL. In just 2 months, Katana has surpassed 500 million in TVL, with over 90% of that being productive in ecosystem apps like Sushi and Morpho. From now until the end of, it is already past the end of November, but users that bridge to Katana can earn boosted yield from cat incentive campaigns, added VaultBridge yield, and other chain revenue. Follow the link in today's show notes to get started. I need to find out if that boosted yield is still ongoing.
Sorry, what?
I need to find out if Katana has continued that boosted yield, or if it's if that's changed in the month of December now.
Very good. I think we should fire our producer. That's rule number. Like that's.
We should fire our producer. He needs to be doing a lot more, actually. You know.
He should be doing a lot more.
I wanted to pull up this tweet maybe for something funny to kind of talk about, close things out. we were talking. I don't know if we talked about it on this pod, but like, I don't know. There's been a lot of excitement about prediction markets, and there's been some good memes going around. I don't know. I think we've talked a little bit. I talked about it on Lightspeed with Ryan Connor and some of the other guys, and maybe we talked about it with James and Noah last week here.
You have fucking Ryan Connor on Lightspeed.
Yeah,
that's fucked up.
Yeah, man. What do you think? He loves Solana.
Oh my god!
But some of the conversation right now is that like the speak about prediction markets is maybe a little overheated, and I thought this tweet was hilarious, or this copy pasta that's been going around is so funny that like prediction markets will replace buying stuff. I want someone to bring kiwis to my house. I make a prediction about whether someone will deliver 4 kiwis and load 15 into no. A guy with an e-bike sees it and picks up some kiwis. Before dropping them off, he bets yes. He drops them off, and the market resolves to yes, and he gets $15. Rest in peace, Amazon, DoorDash, Uber Eats, etc. So of course I've seen a bunch of versions of this copy pasta, like for just everything, like replace every type of company with a prediction market. And then you have a guy that bets yes and a guy that bets no, and it replaces everything about the service.
I will say my favorite one is still the one that, what's that guy's name from the song? Tulip King. The Tulip King one is I think Ryan Connor messaged me after he thought I was like
about being elected to political office.
Yeah, I don't know how relevant prediction markets will be apart from gambling. I don't really. The one is like, oh, you can see what like. I think the funniest one was when you saw people were doing like rates based on prediction markets, and it's like, well, there's like, it's the most fucking liquid market in the world, but you can just look at the actual market. I don't know. We'll see. Like, it is objectively pretty good though that I can check out that the market generally thinks Kevin Hassett is going to win by 78% chance. That's a good thing. I don't know if it will solve. I think it's largely going to be the same promise that crypto had, which was the universal equalizer. We found out, unfortunately, at a certain point turns into pure gambling and then probably gets fixed up after that with tokenization and everything going forward. But I would say probably prediction markets will be disappointing for the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, it's actually funny that like I don't know that I feel like the basis of building out prediction markets has always been this like idea of more information, like you mentioned, like you could know with more certainty than like doing a poll about who will be the next Fed chair, for example. But then what ends up happening is all the trading is on sports gambling, and then you what's that one thesis? It's like the newest thing always starts out looking like a toy, but in crypto we say the newest thing always starts out looking like a casino. It's a question mark as to whether that's true or if it just is inevitably always going to be a casino.
I do think that there's a way that it can become a super digestible way of showing percentages, like probabilities that certain things happen or not. But I don't know how necessary it is to have massive valuations on these things. Like, I do think it's the only right. Like, I mean, they're very cool, but I don't know how much money they make, and I don't know about like how much money they'll continue to make going forward. It makes a lot more sense if they're just like trading infrastructure, which is very valuable, but probably not as valuable as everybody else thinks it is, where it's like, oh, it's going to be like the joke, the guy you showed right now, I don't know his name, but like Aaron J. Mars, I think. That's like clearly a joke, right? But there are people who are like that's that like very clearly a joke at level like 9. But there are people who believe at like a level 7 or a level 6 of that intensity, and they're like, oh, this is definitely going to happen. Probably like it'll be I would think that it would become very boring tech where it's like purely trading infrastructure on the back end. And you and I, if we're interested in a market, we can bet on it. But the vast majority of its use case is probably purely showing like data for like elections data, product level data, I don't know, macro data, etc., etc. But like, and that's just off of betting. And currently, there's not enough volume to decide whether something is going to be like true or not based on the amount of traders there is, but it's mostly just insider trading showing it. So it still works. Like the product still works purely because of insider trading. And I think eventually it'll start working because you have I imagine they're gonna start consolidating markets and offering like better ways of, because right now the markets are really messy, right? It's
Some
like,
of them, yeah.
like, will Danny leave 0x Research by October? Will Danny leave 0x Research by November? Will Danny leave 0x Research by December?
Yeah.
And you can only vote yes or no. I think they're gonna have to consolidate those and then put it in a prettier format. No, to me this makes the most sense. Like they consolidate markets, and it's a purely back end thing, and at the front end that regular people see. I don't believe in this financialization of everything. I think the front end that regular people see will just purely be like a news platform that feeds into various search engines, news channels, newspapers, whatnot, and it's like purely a data API that people show. I don't think anything else makes sense. It's like the market is like
Yeah.
nobody, like the vast majority of people aren't involved within the market at a reasonable level, but they always pull those data points. It's like SP 500 rose 0.8% this morning, and like that goes. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's a very convoluted way of describing this like very simple thing, but this to me makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know, like if you think about the weather, for example, the thought I'm having here is like, does predicting the weather or like being a weatherman, like, does that make money today? Like, how do you make revenue? I think in most cases it's like you're on a local news channel and then the news network is like paying to hire a weatherman, and they're doing that because certain people watch their broadcasts. But like, I guess hypothetically in this future where like a news network can't make enough money just by like sponsor deals, maybe they then need to financialize the weather, and then the weather guy actually has to be like a cracked statistician and market maker on the weather prediction markets. And he has to run a profitable venture. I'd say I don't know that that's like necessarily a good outcome, but
Yeah, I
there's
don't
like
know.
a weird scenario here where it's just like, I don't know, it just kind of points to like, it's like a monetization avenue from kind of where I'm sitting, and maybe some, I think we're seeing news kind of lean into it because, I mean, they'll take whatever they can get if they can get the news people, people that tune in to also gamble on some markets. Maybe that's good for them, but it probably doesn't really like make sense as an end state for everything, like you're saying.
Yeah. Also, so far we've only seen that these things end up in good, like these things are better than existing forms. So like the big one was Nate Silver was predicted and Kamala was going to win, and then Polymarket predicted Trump was going to win, and then Trump won, and everyone was like, "Well, the establishment forecasters are dead. Prediction markets rule the world." What happens when these things actually can? And like, there's this idea that if there's enough money involved and if there's enough people involved, the market will show the right outcome. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if wisdom of the crowds is something that exists, and I don't know if wisdom of capital is also something that exists. Like thus far, it's been proven, but thus far it was proven when prediction markets were relatively niche. Like prediction markets, I think gain more. I don't think the data shows this, but I would say that more mind share post-election. Like pre-election or like during the election, there was a lot of money involved. There was a lot of trading volume involved. But I would imagine that it's like very smart, called super forecasters in like lingo, but like just very smart people who realize that there's this new venue for making a lot of money by being right. They get involved in this and they're right. But I don't know if that translates to when the global market gets involved, because the global market is wrong all the fucking time. Like people with vast amounts of money are wrong constantly. So if like in a year more and more people get involved, more and more capital gets involved, but the capital that's getting involved aren't people who like are super interested in new forms of predicting and new forms of markets, but just like regular people who are like, oh, I think Kamal is going to win. James is getting upset at me in the Xerox research chat. I don't even know. It's been 40 minutes since I said that.
Yeah. Maybe one thing I'll add, because I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, is like, just so here's the thing is like, just because the prediction market is correct in the sense that like maybe it favored Trump to win the 24 election and then he went on to win, it doesn't mean that the opposite couldn't have happened. Like if the market priced Kamala at winning at 30% and then she won, it's not that, it doesn't also necessarily mean that the market was wrong. It just means that like a lower probability outcome occurred, and that's possible. Like the market could still, it could price something at 5% and it can happen. That's what was the expected outcome, and it just happened to be that time it worked. It's, flipping a coin is like 50-50 heads tails, but you might get heads 60 times in a row. So it's just something that can happen. So I agree with your point that like, I don't know, it definitely was a very strong marketing campaign for the product, and it really got pushed within media of like all the forecasters and the news channels were wrong, and the prediction markets were like so right, and this is the future of everything. But like it could have been the inverse result. And I don't think that would have fundamentally changed anything about like how these platforms work or how even forecasters work. Like maybe the forecasters were wrong by some degree because they weren't taking new information in this election versus the priors, but it, you don't immediately invalidate all of their work just because you're predicting probabilities. So like by nature, you're not going to be right every time. That's how it works.
It only makes sense. One last thing I'll say, and then we can end this, is they also came up in a very contentious election where mass like publications and news channels, etc., were very much, I would say, on one side of the election versus on the other side of the election. And then I think that also fueled prediction markets quite a bit. And I mean, I don't know if it's like a prediction markets issue at that point, or if it's like a how is our news and television and broadcasted, and like what standards do we need to hold these people onto?
Yeah, I mean, this is outside of crypto, but there's kind of like a centralization thing that happens there where, there's a few businesses or like core groups that own a lot of media outlets. And so, maybe some of them are biased in one way or the other. I think people generally know this, like, that Fox News has a lean, that CNN and XYZ other platform has a lean in one direction or the other. And there's like, you can there's like newer news platforms online that you can find that it's like, see the bias in this article, see who wrote it, see who funded it, that type of thing. You can get all that information, but
even that is like, I don't know. I've found that
I don't think that they're like, the average guy that's watching Fox or reading the New York Times, like, they don't really care is kind of the result.
Yeah. The issue is that the only form of mass media that is unbiased is probably like purely financial news, right? Like Financial Times, etc. Well, it still has a bias, but it's a lot less biased than other stuff because it's like purely related to the markets. And like you can be on one side or the other side, and you're mostly leaning towards making some form of bet in the market. This is irrelevant to this conversation, but this is like something I've been thinking about, and like how you want to adjust the way that you consume news. And I don't know if the solution is like to have an API hooked up to your computer that just prints out prediction markets and stock things, but something to think about for everybody.
Yeah, it gets back into the financialize everything idea.
Yeah.
Financialize all your feeds and make them help you trade.
Yeah, wait, Zaki asked, Bok, do you have thoughts on the HL front and HIP free markets are divided by issuer, which is not intuitive in my opinion, but it makes sense from risk side thing. Other thing is, it doesn't make a lot of sense from right now, I think, because of the way that it is displayed, but historically, there are different markets in centralized exchanges per different ticker, and I think that's what Hyperliquid's kind of doing. Like they fixed that somehow because you can have Tesla USDH, Tesla USDC, which works a lot better than if there were like two Tesla USDC markets, right? So it's like, because like in Binance, if you think about it, there's like whatever BTC FD USD, BTC USDT, BTC USD markets. So it's not as bad as it should be, but I mean, this is like, yeah, this is one of my bull cases for Lighter, is they're able to issue everything under USD because they control all markets. We'll see which one ends up being right and which one works. For the time being, I do think that it's a little messy, but not messy enough such that you can't trade. I think if as they start moving things into like the strict place, it'll also be a bit better.
Are they the big stink about USDH a couple months ago is so interesting to me now? Like, is Hyperliquid not going to prioritize transitioning markets over to USDH? Like they don't care, just let them be USDC based?
I don't know if it's their priority. No, I mean USDH is like, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna plan on shift. It would be such a pain in the ass. The thing is that I think that would be bad for Hyperliquid. Like you want to keep people. I like Max Fiegi and I like USDH, but he knows that USDC has a certain brand and certain Lindy that USDH just doesn't have yet. And it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to say, hey guys, like I know we have $5 billion of capital in USDC, we're going to swap it over to USDH in one day. I don't even think USDH would be able to handle it at this point. Maybe. I don't think they'll swap for a while. I don't think they'll swap ever. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. But USDH has a lot of good stuff going for it. You get like reduced fees to a meaningful extent, which I think is to the dogs.
Yeah, they're fighting.
I'll let you go. And do you beat the dogs or
no? They probably want to go outside and run around.
We can have things here after I said beat the dog.
Okay, we can call it there. I think covered everything we wanted to chat about. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go set up all my pricing feeds from the news so I can tap directly into all markets without having to think about it and really financialize my life even further.
Yeah.
I think really just like locking in and leaning into the new trends is the way to go. So
you should only be thinking about
how to trade about everything that is happening in the world.
Your entire life should be financialized to the point that you can't think of anything else.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You will eat the bugs. Your children will eat the bugs. And we're all going to eat the bugs together on Friday when you hear from us next time. Peace out.
Peace.
See you guys.